So this is the back and this is the front bodice. Now we'll set the back aside, and I went ahead to copy my basic bodice pattern, as you can see, but I ended on the waist. Okay, so what we are going to do next is I am going to mark my bust span measurement, that is my nipple to nipple, and then I'll mark the same thing on the waist side like so, and then I'll connect these 2 points together. Next is to look for your middle point, divide your shoulder measurement into 2, and then connect the midpoint to your bust like that. So once we are done with this, I'm going to take 1 inch on my under bust and then 1 inch also on both sides of my waist. Okay, depending on the bust, okay, how big the bust is, you can take 1 inch or more. All right, okay, so after doing this, I'll come down from my bust point. I'll come down by 1 inch, and then I'll connect to meet the 1 inch points that I have created. Okay, like that. Also, the next thing is to find my radius. What is the radius? Radius is from your bust to your under bust. Okay, the distance. So I'll just go ahead and then transfer this distance up onto this shoulder line that I've created. If you want a very deep tube top, you just can't rest at that point, but my client doesn't want a deeper neck line, so I'm just going to come down by 5.5 inches for my shoulder line, and then I'm going to come down by just 5.5 inches. So that is where I'll be inserting my dart instead of the radius point. So I'll be inserting my dart over here. Okay, so the next thing is to take 1 inch on both sides, just like we did for the upper under part, like so, and then connect it straight to our bust point. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and then define the line very well so that it comes out deep. So the next thing we are going to be doing right now is to go ahead and then add 2 inches that we've taken out back on that line like so. But remember, we have taken in ½ inches for our 3/4 inch for our armhole depth. Okay, so I'm going to be marking or taking out my 3/4 inch like so, and then I'll connect this to my armhole line later. Okay, so that is just for the 3/4 inch space. So I'll just go ahead and create a dotted line like that. This line is just to serve as a guideline. Okay, so the next thing is just smoothing out your sharp corners of the dart. All right, so after that, I'll go ahead and do the same thing to this side, and then flip it over to that side, and then smoothing out my sharp edges. Okay, now I'll just go ahead and then refine my armhole line like that. So we'll take 1/4 of our bust measurement. Okay, like so, and remember we've taken some few inches away, so I'm going to add it back. That is ½ an inch. I'm going to add it back This will make the bust measurement complete. Okay, so the next thing is to just connect the armhole. So this is our new armhole line. All right, this is our new armhole line, and then we've already inserted our bust measurement plus this dots that we've taken out. Okay, so this is totally optional, but just add it in case you are not sure. Just add those 2 inches that we took up there back to this. Okay, and then we move to our waistline. So on my waistline, I mark quarter of my waist measurements and then add my dots that I've borrowed back to. So I'm paying it's more like paying a debt. You've taken 2 inches of that, so you just need to add it back. Okay, so that is basically it. Now I'll connect the points like so. Like I was saying, the 2 inches I added was totally optional, but just in case, just add it in case. Okay, so I'm going to add my seam allowance of 2.5 inches and then square this up or draw a straight line across like so. Now the next thing is to refine these lines. That is our guideline or our starting line like so. I'm going to refine this line, and then I'm going to come down from my neck line like so by 1 inch. Okay, remember my client doesn't want anything deep. Okay, so I'm just going to come down by 1 inch and then connect with my curved ruler. So once I'm done with this, I'll just go ahead and then add my seam allowances to the top panel like that. So I'm going to add 0.5 inches, that is half inches of seam allowance to the top. So after this, if you want the top part for a yoke, you just go ahead and then connect it like this, and then this will be your yoke. Okay, but I won't be needing this. And then make sure that you add 1 inch. Half inch is to join it to the bodice, and the other half inch will serve as a seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to write my center front, and I'm going to be cutting this on fold, and then I'm going to be cutting times 2 of this. Okay, so the next thing is just cut this out. So if you need a yoke, just cut this out and then take down your neckline and also add half inches to your shoulder line like so. Okay, so we'll go ahead and cut the rest out. Don't be confused when you're about to cut the armhole. Okay, so carefully cut this smoothly like so, and okay, so this is it. And when we join this is how it's going to be. So for the back panel, like I'm just going to come down by 5.5 inches like I did for the front, and I'm going to draw a straight line to serve as my guide. Okay, so the next thing is to take our dots or our bust point measurement, just like I did for the front, and then I'll connect this to each other. Okay, so I would normally stop 1 inches away from the bust or the armhole line, but because this is a tube top, I'm going to extend this all the way up. So I'm going to take in 1/2 inches on both sides for my dart, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it like so. So you can just take your dart all the way up, or just connect it like so, and then split your bodice into 2. Okay, so I'm going to come down from the neckline by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to connect this. And then continue with a straight ruler. Okay, so just like that. You add your seam allowances all round. Then you connect it. Okay. Pardon me, these are the only ruler I have, so I just need to manage it. And now we are going to be inserting our measurements. So cut off my waist measurement, and then I'll add my darts back, and then I'll connect this. So the next thing is add my 2.5 inch seam allowance, and then connect. Okay, so we are done, and I'm cutting this out. Remember our yoke. If you want the yoke, okay, just go ahead and then add 1 inch when you're cutting on the main fabric. Add 1 inch. 1 inch, 1/2 inch is going to serve as the sewing allowance, and the rest is going to serve as the seam allowance. Okay, so you cut the shoulder side like so, and then trim off the neckline like that. Okay, so once we are done, I'll just go ahead and trim the rest of my back. I'll take out my darts like that. Okay, so that is all for the drafting, and I'm going to be cutting this. So I've added my seam allowance or my sewing allowance for the bottom part, and I'm going to be adding 0.5 inch for joining the bodice together. Okay, I've also added 0.5 inch for the armhole. I'm going to do the rest the same to the rest of the pattern. Add your 0.5 inch joining allowance, and then your bottom or your joining allowance for the peplum. Okay, so I just went ahead to notch all of this out, and I've also cut the same thing for my lining piece. Okay, so I have 4 pieces, 2 for the lining and then 2 for the main fabric. The same here. I went ahead to cut my peplum. I cut 10 inches of length, and then also the lining. Okay, so this is the sleeve. It's going to be a 2-step sleeve. So this is the bigger and this is the smaller one. I'm going to show you how to do the stitching of the sleeve. Okay, so guys, I have finished cutting out all my patterns and I've removed them. Now the next thing is to just go ahead and iron my interface. Okay, so because this it's really visible. I'm not going to iron it. I'm going to iron it on the lining rather. So I'm going to iron all my interface on the lining for the front. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing. I'll not iron interface on the back. I'll just, so guys, I am done ironing this interface. So I'm going to join from the bottom part to the upper part. So I am going to also flip the other side like so, and then join. Okay, so I'll do the same thing to the back panel. I'm going to join using our 0.5 stitch allowance that we added later. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here, and then I'll do the same thing to the lining. And guys, I am back. Okay, I am done. So I'm done with all the pieces. So the next thing is to check whether your bodice is round, your tube is round. Okay, for the bust area. So just place it on like this, and then apply pressure to see if it's really round. If it's not round, you just need to go back to your sewing machine and then do a round work or a neat finishing. Okay, so you check for all of the rest as well. So you check like so, and then you do the same thing to this side. Now the next thing is to iron our seams. Okay, we are going to be opening our seam and iron them flat. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the lining and the main fabric. Okay, I'm going to iron for the front and then for the back panel as well. So I'm going to iron my seam open like that, and then I'll come back. So guys, I finished ironing in my seams flat, and then I took in my zipper allowance as well. I ironed in my zipper allowance after removing the bulginess from the back. So I'm going to make a tutorial on how to take out bulginess, that is zip bulginess. So I'm going to attach this right side facing each other and then take out the neckline like so. After that, I'll notch and then I'll top stitch on the lining. So I did the same thing to the back panel, and for the sleeve I'll just go ahead and then stitch like so, and then stop somewhere here to flip this open. Okay, so I'll also stitch this around and then leave an opening. Okay, so I'll do the same thing for this one, and then I'll come back and show you the rest. Okay, so I am done with the neckline. As you can see, I have finished top stitching and it came out so nice, and you can see the stiff has really made the bust stand out. So I did the same thing to the back panel, did the same thing to both sides. And then for the sleeve, I have turned it outside to the right side and I ironed. And then I also did the same thing for the top one, and then I stitched this together like so. I did the same thing. So the next thing is to show you how I got the sleeve. Okay, the depth of the sleeve, the measurements you need for this. So you go ahead and measure what you have on your front bodice, and then you write it down. So I got 15 inches minus 1 inch seam allowance, because half inch will be sewing or we'll be joining the hands half inch on each side, so it's going to be 14 inches. So you write your 14 inches down, and then this is 7.5 inches. Half inch is for joining allowance, so automatically have 7 inches. And then for the other part of the bodice, that is the side, the other part of the back too, is the same thing, 7.5, and I'm going to be using half inch to join. Okay, so I have 7 plus 7 is 14. So this is the front and this is the back. Okay, so with this 14 plus 14, we are going to be getting 28 inches. Now the next thing is to take the round shoulder measurement of the person. Okay, so in my case, the round shoulder measurement is 42.5 inches. All right, so this is my round shoulder. Okay, so you subtract this 28 inches from this 42, like so. And then the answer is 14.5 inches. So with this 14.5 inches, you are going to be dividing this into, so I'm going to be dividing this measurement into two because the sleeve has the right and then the left side. So each measurement will after dividing the 14.5 into two, each sleeve should have at least 7 point something inches, which I am going to be calculating soon. So the 14.5 inches divided by 2 is 7.25 inches. Okay, so each sleeve should have 7.25 inches. Okay, so you don't add your seam allowance right now. You take one sleeve and then you divide this into two as well, and then the same applies to this. Okay, so we are going to be dividing this 7.5 into two. You can go ahead and straight up add 1 inch for it, and then but I prefer to divide it into two again and then add my seam allowance. So this is the final calculation that I got, and then after that I'll add my seam allowance. Okay, so for this sleeve I am going to be sandwiching, okay, for the front and then the back panel like so. So I'm going to be sandwiching in between the lining of the front bodice and then the main fabric of the front bodice. Okay, so after sandwiching it properly, I am going to be stitching and closing the armhole as well. Okay, so for the back panel we are going to be connecting the same armhole to the back panel. We are going to be sandwiching it in just like we did for the front part. So the lining and then the main fabric right sides facing each other, and then you come out with your sleeve. So this is just to show you how the sleeve is going to look like after I've taken it to my machine and brought this out. Okay, I am going to be doing the same thing to the other side. Now I am done with sandwiching this. I went ahead to cut off the excess that I had, and then I trimmed off the edge. Okay, I've also neatly ironed it, and I did the same thing to the side as well. So the next thing is to sew down the sides. Okay, I am going to just take my main fabric and then my lining piece separately. Okay, so this is the main fabric of my front and back. Okay, I'm going to attach it like so, and then I'm going to stitch. I'm going to connect the lining like so and then stitch. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to this side. So right sides facing each other, main fabric together and then lining together. So I'm going to sew just using a 1/4 inch stitch. Okay, so after I am done, this is how it looks. I've also ironed this properly, and that's how it looks. And also this is the side panel, the other side I did the same thing. Now the next thing is to take in the rest of the seam allowance that we have. Remember we added 2.5 inches, but now we've taken a 1/4 inch in, so we'll be taking 2/4 inch in, that is 2.25 inches in. So I'm going to stitch 2.25, take down my measurement of 2.25 inches on both sides and stitch. Also, I'll be turning the lining right side facing the other. I'll stitch using a 0.5 inch, and then I'll flip it over. I'll top stitch on the lining, and I will join the waist panel together. Okay, so I am done with the connecting of the bodice. I've taken down my measurements, and with the peplum, okay, I went ahead to do whatever I wanted to do. I took in 1/2 inch and ironed, and also I have joined my lining and put a front panel together. So the next thing is to notch. I finished notching, and I'm going to be matching the center and the side panels together, and then I'll further on start my pleating. Okay, so join the side panel, and then I'll pin this down. So I'll also take the other side of the edge, and then I'll join the side panel there like so, and that is the back, the zipper area. So I'll find the notched area, and then I'll match it to my center front, and then I'll pin. So after this, the next thing is just to pleat, and I'll come back and show you the next step to take. Okay, after pleating. So guys, I've pleated everything down. I also went ahead to hold the edges with pins, and I'm going to sew all along using a 0.5 inch, and I am done. As you can see, it looks so beautiful. Now the next thing is to flip this over and then take down our zip. Okay, so I'm going to be sewing in my zipper on this side and also on this side. Okay, so I'm going to pin this down. I'm going to pin it down carefully. So I'm going to start from the bottom part, and I'm going to be pinning this down up until the upper part. Okay, so once I'm done, I'm going to be doing the same thing to the other side. Okay, going to pin and then stitch it down. All right, so guys, I am done with this, and look at how beautiful this is. Guys, please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and also share my videos. Okay, subscribe to this channel. I am going to be showing you in my next video how to make the slate. Okay, so I am not going to be cutting the 6 pieces skirt. I am going to make a 6 pieces skirt without putting a scissors on it. So make sure you watch this out, and then please subscribe.